Chairperson Martin. Ooh.
Present.
Vice Chair Zuber.
Present.
Member Beamer.
Here.
Member Yannick.
Here.
Member Powell. A quorum's present.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting to public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Advisory Board to manage wildlife. Seeing no public comment at this time, move to item number 3, approval of the minutes. By the way, Tamar, you and Kathy, and I assume it's you, need to be commended. They're excellent. Thank you very much. Members?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, I'd like to call for the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Item number 4, adoption of the agenda. I don't have any changes. Tamar, any from staff? No changes? Okay. I'd like to I'd entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for the motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, disclosures. Any member of the advisory board may inform the chair of his intent to make a disclosure of a conflict or an agendized item or relative advisory board business. Disclosures of contents of interest may also be made at the time that the specific agenda item appears. Members? Okay, seeing none. No disclosures. Move on to item number 6, presentation of grant request to make improvements at the Carson City rifle and pistol range. Carson City Parks and Rec Department staff is present. And I want to thank you and give you a little brief background. Vern, don't want to take any thunder from you, but as you know, we have a great resource in our rifle and pistol range. But if anybody's tried to go to the bathroom up there lately, it's a little tough. And I think we have some great opportunities to make some improvements in that line and as far as security. And thank you, Pittman Robertson, and thank you, city staff. Vern, can you present what's going on?
Thank you, Chairman Martin. I appreciate that. Let me provide you with some handouts that'll help, I think, in the discussion here. Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, for those watching at home, my name is Vern Cron. I'm the Senior Park Planner. I'm with the Parks and Recreation Department here in Carson City. And I do have some extras if some folks in the audience might be interested.
Please. Thank you.
This way you won't be surprised the next time I go out there.
Well, you never know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, first off, I'd like to thank the advisory board for inviting me to come. Always nice to share good news versus some of the other times I get to share not so good news. So these are always nice opportunities to share with not only the advisory board but with the public what's going on out there. We have been very fortunate. Well, let's talk about 2 different things. We have received a Pittman Roberts grant for an automatic security gates and some bar gates out there. The first 3 pages in your packet will show that. The first page, which is the front page, shows the location of where this automatic security gate is going to be going. It's approximately a mile from the range. It will be located, go to your packet, and it'll be on the second page, approximately in this location. Part of the reason for it is because of the topography. A lot of you probably know that if you put a gate on flat ground, people just like to drive around it. So what we tried to do was to identify an area where you had a cut slope, which in this particular case would be on the east side of the road, so you wouldn't get people necessarily quickly driving around the gate. And then on the west side of the road, there's a drop-off. So that was part of the reason for that location. The other reason for the location being about a mile from the range is so people won't park at the gate and walk in. If we put it down, say, by the water tank, for example, there would be the opportunity for somebody to park at the gate when they're not supposed to be there and walk in, a couple, 200-300 yards, and there they are. So those are the two reasons why the gate is being located in this particular position. On the third page of your packet is what the gate will look like. It's going to be a 6-foot-high chain link fence that will go back and forth across a rail. Part of the other reason for the location is that when the gate pulls out to, in this case, the west, it'll be overhanging the slope of the fill slope of the road, so it won't be running into the bank. So that's what we're going to try to do out there. We've received this grant last year at this time. We've had to go through environmental clearance processes, so I would like to report today that we've just received as of today, so I thought the timing was amazing, today from the State Historical Preservation Office clearances for this project. It's one of the things we have to go through on these lands out there that were given to us through the omnibus federal lands bill. The city acquired a bunch of property out there. We are required to go through environmental or cultural clearances. NDOW has their own process that then they clear us on other environmental side of things, which was done early in the process. It's just that we had to go through this cultural clearance process, and it's been a good 6 months to get through that process, but we're there. Matter of fact, just before I came to the meeting, I called the gate contractor that we have a contract with currently and told him he has the green light to start planning for putting that gate in. He has shared with me that once given notice, it'll take him about 4 to 6 weeks to get all the parts ordered and installed. So we're shooting right now for the end of April for the installation of that gate.
Excuse me, quick question.
Absolutely.
To commence installation or to be completed with?
To be completed by the end of April. That's our goal.
Great.
The grant expires at the end of June, so I don't want to cut it too close. Makes me nervous, makes the grant people nervous, and just isn't a good thing for my life, my stomach, my heart, my head, none of those things. So we just try to move forward as quick as we can. So we're real excited for those of you at home and for the board here. The project itself, at least the grant we received, was a total of $24,944. The gate itself is running about 10 grand of that. Which we will be matching with some quality of life funds, as well as the Sheriff's Office has helped with the contribution of a $5,000 in-kind match to us. So we're real happy to have the Sheriff's Department in this partnership with us. They have concerns what's happening out there late at night, responding to calls, and so they think that this gate will also provide the opportunity to limit that, sending the deputies up there late at night, which isn't exactly the safest thing in the world to be doing. So we're excited about that. The other types of funding that this grant is going to cover is, of course, the environmental clearances that I just recently talked about. We have some project construction and management costs that will have to be applied to the project. Also, in order to limit access to the range on off hours, there will be some bar gates that will be put up on some of the 2-track dirt roads going into the complex. It doesn't do us a whole lot of good if we put it on the dirt road and we don't close down some of the other 2-track roads, again, trying to limit that access. We're trying to be very selective in those roads. We're not trying to close off the off-road community. We've tried very hard to identify spots that would still allow them to be able to drive up, see the gate, and then head on out in another direction. So we're trying real hard to do that. So so just kind of in closing, on that particular project, the automatic gate in by the end of April and the bar gates in by the end of May. That's kind of our goal. Yes, sir.
I take it, is that a power pole that we see in the picture, or is that a telephone line? I guess you got to run power out there to run the gate.
Solar powered.
Solar, oh, thank you.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Very good question. Yes, it's a solar-powered gate. We've been working with a company here in town called Artistic Fence. They do solar-powered gates. We referred to them by a couple other fence companies. And so our interactions with Ken over there have been very positive, so we're looking forward to that.
Another question on that, Vern. The hours of operation are clearly posted out there, and I believe it's sunrise to sunset. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So this gate is coordinated with that sunrise to sunset, correct?
That is our intent. So I'm putting a little caveat on that because depending on the timer, we're still trying to work through some, this is kind of into the weeds kind of thing. Our intent is to keep the facility as a dawn to a dusk facility. We're hoping to be able to, in our workings with the contractor, to be able to have a photo cell that will open the gate at the right times. If not, we will probably have to go to a clock. And we'll do our best to keep that clock close to sunrise and sunset as we possibly can. So we will still kind of working through those little details. But yes, the intent is to be still a dusk or dawn to dusk facility.
Vern, there's a sidereal timers available that have built-in compensation for the way the Earth rotates. So it's always dusk to dawn, regardless if it's daylight saving time or regular
Really?
time. Yeah, I have one.
That's cool. Can you send me some information on that?
Sure.
Because that would really be helpful. Yeah, because
I constantly used to go crazy having to readjust the time twice a year, and as the days get longer or shorter, when the outside lights go on.
No, it makes a lot of sense. What we're running into is a photo cell requires a consistent draw, and so with the batteries versus if it was a powered system, that wouldn't be an issue. But with batteries, the photo cell is a draw on the batteries, and so we've got to kind of sort through that whole issue with them. But I mean, we'll get it figured out. I have confidence, so we're good, I think.
So Vern, thank you for letting us know everything that's going on. It's good to see the Carson City taking advantage of that grant. One question I have is, how is the Parks Department going to enforce the access and hours? Are we relying on the Sheriff's Department? Are we relying on one of the local clubs? How's that going to work out?
Very good question, very good question. The way the gate is designed is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a dawn to dusk facility. If for some particular reason somebody gets hanging out a little late, maybe being in there a little late and the gate closes on them, they can get all their stuff picked up in time, they will be able to get out.
They just won't be able to get in, right?
They just won't be able to get in. If they're in there after hours and we find out about it, we have a park ranger, of course, and or the sheriff's office can respond as well.
So park rangers are going to be going out there and, okay.
Just kind of like they do now. You know, they'll go out there and they'll check for folks that shouldn't be there.
Okay. Do we have any established authority out there on the range as far as usage and that sort of thing goes?
That's a good question. Scott Fehrenbrook, the deputy director, would be a better one to ask or to answer that particular question. Okay. We don't staff the range. The range is not staffed by city employees. So from that regard, no, we don't have anybody out there as a range master, if you will. But it is my understanding, and hopefully this is true, is that the clubs, when at some times during the day, they do have range masters out there, but I don't know enough about that to really go on the record of saying something like in concrete.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I had 5 different people send me emails in regards to that, and saying that they were being hassled out there so I just wanted to know how we were working that out there, and I can get with Scott. And
yeah, would you get with Scott? He would be the one that has the relationship and works with the different shooting clubs out there.
Sounds great.
Now, unless there's anything else about the gate project, I'll move on to the restroom grant that we've applied for. Anything else? Okay. On the 4th page of your packet, there is a small site plan in there. You can see from the little aerial photograph that we have, you can see where the rifle range is located and the shooting bays, and of course the handicapped ramp that is located in between the 2 shooting bays. The restroom is located directly across from the 2 existing handicap spots that are there. We will provide, instead of a dirt surface, so if somebody is using the range, this is being designed with handicapped folks in mind, is that if somebody is using one of the shooting bays and they need to get to the restroom, they'll be able to, of course, go down the ramp between the 2 spots identified for vehicle parking for the handicapped folks, across the concrete sidewalk and over to the restroom. So we're trying to be as close to the range as we can without, causing problems related to getting it too close to the actual shooting facility. On the second, continuing on in the packet, you will see at least what we estimated out was a CXT concrete building. You may ask why concrete versus block, and some of you may know that. Concrete's a little easier to repair when somebody shoots it than cinder block, so that's part of the reason we have chosen that particular material. Also, it's going to have a men's and a women's side to it. Both will be handicapped accessible, and of course, then it's a vault toilet system. We don't have a sewer system out there or anything, or it's not going to be a leach field. It'll be a vault toilet that'll be pumped out occasionally when it's appropriate. And my understanding, and you can double check with Scott when you call him, but my understanding is that the clubs are going to help with the maintenance, the cleaning and supplying of the restroom. So we'll see how that all goes. Also in your packet, you can get a little better idea from just from a construction document perspective versus pictures. You can see that we have both the elevations of the building as well as cross sections of it. It's pretty basic, it's pretty Spartan, but considering there's nothing out there at the moment, this is probably very good for everybody. It does address that public health issue that we believe it's one of those things that we're just not sure when it's time to go bathroom, where people go, but we're going to give them an opportunity to have a place to go. So we're excited about that. The grant itself, the toilet itself, it was around $44,000 to get it constructed and shipped here, and the total project is $69,480. We have requested $52,056 from NDOW for this particular project. The in-kind is coming from Quality of Life Parks Capital, $11,142. The Foundation for Parks and Recreation, the North Sierra Ladies Gun Club, is contributing $3,454 based on the fundraiser they had out there this fall. And Lori Bagwell, Supervisor Lori Bagwell, was able to wrestle a donation out of the Nevada law enforcement instructors for $2,756. So we thank both Lori and the Nevada law enforcement instructors for their contribution, as well as for the effort that the North Sierra Ladies Gun Club put in to give us that extra matching fund. So we're really excited about this opportunity. We submitted, the deadline was the 11th, we submitted a week early. Unfortunately, I don't think that gets us bonus points, but we did get in the door in plenty of time. I've talked to Chris Vasey. They will now go through a selection process similar to what they did last year. If we get a chance, if we get the award, Chris usually is really kind enough to give me a quick phone call and let me know, but the funds won't be available until July 1st. And if it goes anything like last year, we didn't get the paperwork, the actual grant paperwork, until the middle of September. So we'll just see how that all process works out. But Chris is an advocate for us. Once it gets to the selection committee, Chris can't promise us anything, but it's nice to have staff as an advocate in that situation. He understands what we're trying to do. He understands the bigger picture at the range. So it's nice to have him there to answer questions for us. So it's been great working with Chris. He's answered all my questions on the grant application. So if there's any questions from you folks, we'd be glad to take them on that project.
Last year when there was an article in the paper, requesting the public to contribute. Did a lot of people respond?
I'm not aware of anybody that responded. Oh, who did you give it to us?
Yeah.
Really?
Because I called up and I said, where do I send the check?
Oh, I'll look into that.
Go into Public Works.
It went to Public Works? Really?
Look at the back of the check and see what it says, but
Yeah, check with them, because as far as I know, we've never our department has never received that, but, so check and get with me and we'll see what we can do. If it ended up over at Public Works, I'm not sure why they would have cashed the check for a restroom project out at the rifle and pistol range, but.
well, that's why I called up and I asked. And they said, send it to us. I said, okay.
Really? I didn't even know Public Works had a grants, gifts, and donations account. So, all right, well, yeah, but they were willing to take your money. So, just double check. I can check when I get back to the office to see if Daria knows anything about it. Scott's out today. That's kind of why I'm here. But, and glad to be here, of course. But I'll check. Scott's never mentioned that to me, and Daria hasn't either. They're usually real good about saying, oh, they usually run down the hall and say, look, we got a check. So I'll check for you, Gil.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gil? Stan? No. Ron? Vern, first, I want to thank you for this, because this is really important. And do you have plans? Are the funds available beyond this year? Do you have any plans for future beyond this? What does the future hold? How's that?
That's a very good question. With these two projects online, we still have a little bit of money left over within the Quality of Life Parks capital line item. It's not a lot, but we do have some. And I have been having discussions with both Scott and Roger about hiring a consultant so that we can actually get an architect on board to actually design the Hunter Ed classroom that's going to go in out there, or at least that's kind of the long-range thinking. And that's been on the table for many years. But before we can go after another grant, I need to have solid costs and I need to have a design. So that's one of the things we're going to have to look at and see. We haven't had any serious discussions lately about it, but that's what I'm hoping to do, is that we can sit down with Roger, Scott, and myself, kind of once we get the first project completed and the other one underway, that we can then look ahead to next year, and sometime between this fall, maybe early winter, is to hire an architect to get out there and actually develop a design for us, a concept, and then put some numbers to it.
Perfect. And Rob, I know you have a question and a comment too. Just hang on one second. As a Hunter Ed instructor, and as there's another Hunter Ed instructor on this board, I am really anxious, and I'm really committed to helping you with that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Part of what's missing from Hunter Ed education is the ability to do live fire. And I think it's an extremely important thing in the right environment. And I know that Mr. Beamer over here is ready and willing to add his 2 cents to this. But please, when you get to that architectural point and you're doing fact-finding and you're coming up with ideas, please include myself. And I think Mr. Beamer is going to echo that. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, so, Vern, what happened with and maybe you can kind of recall this, what happened with the plan that the Parks Department was considering in using the model that was set up, that NDOW helped us set up as far as a classroom goes with the Winnemucca range? I know we had talked about that at one point in time in a meeting, and I mean, was that something that wasn't going to work for you guys, or?
Well, I'm not sure that's the case necessarily. Both Scott and Roger have had the opportunity to see the facility. It's built into a hillside. One of the problems that we have out there with that particular thought is that if you put it into the hillside between the two ranges, you potentially cut off any potential expansion of the ranges. So that's something we would have to work through with you guys. We're open at this point. I don't think there's anything cast in stone, and I think the floor plan has some very solid, from what pictures I've seen, have some really solid components to it, and they have a vault toilet, as I understand, related to that facility as well, a large open classroom. So there's some things that we certainly can go ahead and use. We just can't take the architects, the architectural drawings, or that's architects and the communities who purchased the design services. So we can't necessarily walk up, take them and bring them over here and use them for us. That would not be ethical. So, if they're willing to give those to you, though, wouldn't that, sorry.
If they're willing to provide those to you, that was my understanding, is that they're on board with working with you guys to, so you may want to look into that.
Oh, no, we are. This is real early in the process,
Yeah.
and so, but, yeah, it's just a lot of times, because then all of a sudden you've got the architect's liability. Just because they give us the plans, does the architect stamp them? And so he would have to, so there's a whole lot of legal things related to design and stamping and those kind of components.
My thought process was that, and my understanding of it was that that architect that they used to create those plans would be able to modify them to meet Carson City's needs and do it at a significant discount or
And
no
that's
cost at
perfectly
all,
fine.
right?
And
So-
we'd love to have that discussion with him, but one of the discussions we are going to have with the range folks and with the clubs is, do you want to put a shooting facility, or do you want to put that building in between the two ranges and into the hillside, which then limits your ability to expand any of the ranges?
Yeah.
The other issue becomes too, and we're probably getting a lot farther off this topic than we really need to at this point, but the other problem becomes is parking. You know, you have, if you put it in between the two ranges, no matter, you wouldn't be able to park right next to it. So anywhere else you would be able to locate that, everybody would either have to park alongside the road in order to get to it, or you would have to park in the big parking lot, the big dirt parking lot south of the range, and walk to it. So the location also is a critical factor in this as well. So it's just it has to do with site location and how that building is then designed to relate to the site location. So just different things to talk about. Nothing is set in stone. Those are just some challenges I see.
Great. Thank you, Vern. A couple of last things. First of all, I want to make a plea, and I want to thank the city for what you're doing, and I'd like the public to appreciate what is happening and to respect the facility that's there. I really hope that we all see what a benefit this is to the shooting, recreational shooting community, and I take my hat off to you and thank you, and I'm asking everyone who's watching to please respect this and treat it as it should. So thank you again.
Welcome.
And at this point, since this is such a great topic, if anybody from the public has any comments, Vern, anything else?
No, I think I've pretty much covered it. Again, if you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy, or if someone in the public has some questions based on my presentation, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
Great, thank you, Vern. So if anybody from the public has a comment on this topic item?
It says automatic. It automatically puts in the morning and then shuts at night, and that's it?
Yes, and if you have that question, you can ask that of Vern, but the answer is yes, and that's not on the record, that particular question. Thank you.
Yes, for the record, Fred Volz. In hearing the report about this possible building, it seems like Carson City is in a very different situation than Winnemucca. I don't know the exact location of where this is going to be installed or has been installed in Winnemucca, but it's probably miles away from any other buildings or facilities. The firing range here is not that far from the city. We have all sorts of facilities here in town, whether it's the community center here or a school or someplace else. So if there's a need for hunter education, it would seem as though we should use one of our existing facilities and not construct something brand new, regardless of whether it's a gazebo or an enclosed building. And what Mr. Yannick was saying about the utilities, that's certainly an issue, because if you put up a building, I believe the Winnemucca facility actually has restrooms and electricity and all the other accoutrements that would go along with a facility that is improved. There is no capacity for that out in Winnemucca that I'm aware of. And there certainly isn't anything out at this range from what I understand of it. So before we start going for grants or designs or anything, we really need to be looking at our other options first. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Vern, thank you very much. And Vern, I have a favor of you before you leave. You're familiar with city equipment. Could you, during this next presentation, scroll down through the computer while I do a little presentation here?
Oh, I can do that.
You can do both? Okay, all right. I thought I was going to pick on you here, Vern.
Oh, no, that's fine. Tomorrow, if you want to, that'd be great, because I really do need to get back to the office.
Okay, thank you, Vern.
Is that all right? Or thank you very much.
Moving on, item number 7, updates on urban wildlife education and outreach program, including a presentation of the new Facebook page on urban wildlife developed by NDOW and UNR Cooperative Extension staff. As you know, we have been working on developing a lot of outreach regarding urban wildlife conflicts. And one of the great results here is up on both screens right now. Cooperative Extension, our new city extension agent, as well as NDOW, as well as input from the city, as well as input from others, came up with a Facebook page, and I just want to make sure that people know about it, see that it's there, start using it. We are now, it's now live, and it's now up to 38 likes. One of them is mine. Hopefully you all will add a like to it, but pay attention to it. If you can see as you're going down, first of all, there was the recent Living with Coyote program that happened on February 23rd. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit, Tamar, please. You can see there was, again, a little reminder on living with coyotes. On the left-hand side, you can see a really nice urban buck in, I do believe that's the skyline of Salt Lake is what NDOW told me. The Living with Coyote public workshop up above. Scroll down a little more, you can see there's a little article on feeding deer can be dangerous, not to mention illegal. Do want to remind people that, and it shows great examples of how deer do jump fences. They're here. Go ahead and scroll down some more. There is some great information. There's an article in here with a link to Joanne Skelly's deer resistance plans, and as you know, Joanne was our beloved cooperative extension agent. Scrolling down a little further, there's a what's interesting here is I don't know if you can see in the background, but you can see the mule deer right there, exactly ready to cross the fence. And it's really important for us to remember that these deer are in our communities and they are crossing streets all the time. Scroll down a little more, please. And, you know, there's been a lot of really good press that's been coming out, and regarding, you know, feeding deer is a dangerous habit as well as illegal. It's both, and you have to be aware that mule deer have evolved over millennium to adapt to feeding in the winter, and when we take it upon ourselves to supplement their feed, you actually can upset their digestive systems as well as create an unhealthy situation for them by keeping them around your community. I got to say, regarding feeding deer, it's really interesting, and I don't know what we can do about this, but I was in one of the local feed store, I won't say which one, but I did find in the feed store a block, and when you look around for livestock blocks, they have salt licks, they have all sorts of different feed blocks. Well, one of the blocks that I saw in the feed store was a deer feed block that was a combination of molasses and apple pulp, and it was designed to attract deer and to feed them. And I just asked if they were selling them, and they said, oh yeah, we sell quite a few of these. And this was local, so I know that people meaning to do well are inappropriately feeding mule deer, and they should know, please don't do that. it's not good for the deer, and it is illegal. So scrolling down a little further, there's a lot of concern about coyotes and living with them and how to live with them. There's a great outreach program going on right now, and the outreach program is how, there you go, scroll down a little bit more, living with coyotes. There you go. I know this is old information, but this was well attended. We had quite a few people go to this. Want to thank the city for putting and hosting that and bringing people in. And one of the things that
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This is online on the city's website when you go to meetings.
This,
Yeah.
well, I understand that,
live.
but what I wanted to do.
No, the Living with Coyotes seminar.
Okay. Thank you very
It's
much.
live
So
and
people
it's
can
online.
go online and view the seminar.
It's on the city's website, yes.
Great, thank you very much, Tamar. But we're starting to inform the public that you can do a little bit, be a little bit proactive with coyotes. It doesn't hurt for you to carry, for an example, an air horn. And when a coyote is following you or harassing you, give it a little blast. Let it know that it's not welcome. Now, don't do that at 2 o'clock in the morning in a quiet zone. But remember, there are things you can do. Pepper spray is another one that you can use on them. So anyway, I just wanted to go through this, show the public, show our viewing audience, as well as all of you what's been transpiring. So bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Please use this, and if you get a chance to see Cooperative Extension, or that would be Ms. Chichester, or our Urban Wildlife Specialist, and that's Ms. Height. Thank them too. And Jake, I think you might have had a little bit to do with that. Thank you very much, sir. By the way, Jake Kramer with NDOW is in the back, so thank you, sir. Okay, moving on. Item number 8. This is our consent items. We have attached to it several items that are going to be heard as regulations before the Wildlife Commission. These items are agendized as 8A through 8G. As consent items, they are considered routine and may be acted upon by the advisory board with one action where we recommend their approval by the commission, or we can take and remove, any member of the advisory board may request one item to be pulled for separate discussion and action. The advisory board chair retains discretion in deciding whether or not to pull an item from the consent agenda. So at that point, members of the board, any of the items pique your interest to discuss further?
Mr. Chair, for the record, Rob Beamer. I received quite a bit of public comment from sportsmen as well as non-sportsmen. And I would like to propose polling 8E, 8F, and 8G for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Beamer. Gentlemen, any other items to be pulled? Okay. You had the same ones? Okay, all right. Close, all right. So with that, I would like to pull items 8E, F, and G. And before we start discussions on them, I'd like to just I would consider a motion to accept the rest of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second?
So items 8A, B, and C, and D, we're taking an action to support those before the commission. Any further questions, discussions? I'd like to call for a vote on that. All those in favor of those items, say aye.
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 Aye, thank you very much. Mr. Beamer, you asked to pull these, so I'll ask you to start your discussion. The first one is AD, to recommend the adoption of Commission General Regulation 458, electronic rifle triggers, caliber, and cartridge length, and smokeless powder restrictions. Mr. Beamer.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I received roughly about 63 emails and/or phone calls from not only sportsmen, but also reloading enthusiasts on this. And part of that was the NRA sent out a publication, a news publication with regard to the caliber and cartridge length, and also the use of smokeless powder restrictions. Some of them were, I think a lot of them were just calling to voice their Second Amendment rights, but some had some concerns I wanted to bring up before the committee, before the board, to maybe engage in some discussion on it. One gentleman who is a reloading enthusiast made the comment that limiting the size of bullets that he uses would make it to where he can't shoot one of his firearms. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. We did talk a little bit about it, but he was concerned that if the commission does take action on this, in proposing a regulation change, that we consider as a advisory board that we make a recommendation to go with an overall shell length, or casing length, I'm sorry, casing length, and that we don't limit the size of the bullet or the overall length of the casing. And that is included in here as an option. So I would propose that that we consider that as an advisory board. Really, the 30 cal, I did do some research, and some of the professional reloaders that I talked to, really the 30 cal, they're the ones who offer those real elongated bullets that might push that above that 3.8 inch size limit that they're proposing. They also talked about the potential of making it, just to be on the safe side, making it a 4-inch proposal. My recommendation and my I would recommend that we ask the commission to go forward with that we, just so we don't have any issues later on with having to pass further legislation or further regulation to have to clean that up later on. So.
And Mr. Beamer, I'm looking on item number in our packet, support information, and this is the support item for 20C, D, and E. And I do see in there that the third proposed change would limit the use of military-type cartridges such as 50 BMG, blah, blah, blah. But it says in here that there is a consideration to change the 3.8-inch overall loaded length limit to 4 inches. So they are to consider that, to allow hand loaders to load long bullets in their 378s and to seat them at a shallower depth. Is this what you're referring to, and you're recommending that we support that particular change?
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Let's work on these one item at a time. So I know in item 8E, there's quite a few things in here. One of them is smokeless powders. Another one is overall cartridge length and cartridge bullet diameters. So I'd like to work with it on cartridge length first. And just letting you know, as a reloader myself, I am really now looking at the benefit of having, knowing what your, what is that called, your length of your ogive to your lens, and knowing what that is and trying to extend it as far as possible does put your length a little bit longer than what is recommended by, what is that, SAMI? But it's still within the limits of your particular rifle. So I understand what they're saying here.
Yeah.
And I also support that particular option. So would it be okay, Mr. Beamer, if we dealt with these on an individual basis?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion, gentlemen, on this particular item on that? I don't know if you saw that portion of this. Okay. Yes, exactly, right there. Any other discussion, gentlemen?
I have to agree with Bob, because when you're trying to find the right combination for your particular rifle, I mean, you go through a number of manufacturers' bullets and you read all the handbooks as to the propellant that you particularly have been used to and like the results. And so, there's a recipe for this one and there's a recipe for that one. I think the intent, and I read why we're doing this, because of what some people are trying to do, trying to, use rifles, electronic triggers, automatic sighting, and they're looking at calibers that give them capability way beyond what traditionally has been the hunting distances that people accept as nominal. And yeah, you get a 50 caliber BMG and you can go out there, a mile and a half, 2 miles, and say, look what I did. Well, I think, are we looking at hunting? Are we looking at guys who were just out there for, ballistic challenges? And so I think, we got into this situation because of I don't think the hunters.
If I might, Mr. Chair, through you to Member Yannick. So one of the issues that we had was with this was, I think we all agree that utilizing a 50 BMG or a Barrett is not even within the scope of any type of hunting fair chase whatsoever, right? I think we probably, without asking everybody for their opinion on that, I would venture to believe that we all agree with that. And I think the problem that we have here is as technology develops, right, we unfortunately have to develop regulations to accommodate that technology. I don't know if any of you had the chance to go to trackingpoint.com and take a look at some of the technology with regard to some of these firearms that utilize electronic triggers and that sort of thing. But a couple of the people that called me that were NRA proponents kind of chastised me a little bit and said, you have an obligation to uphold our Second Amendment right, and I reminded them very, very fast that I have an obligation to the citizens here of Carson City and to the state in serving in the capacity that I do, and I don't have to agree with what you think is infringing upon your Second Amendment rights. And so anyway, putting all those aside, the real substance of the calls or the emails that I received were real concerns about someone being able to go out and utilize a hunting rifle that their dad gave them, right? And they're reloading their own because they can't find rounds, right? And with the problem with purchasing reloading of components like powder and bullets and cartridges and all these things now, some of these components you can't even find them anymore to purchase. And so that was one of the concerns that two of the individuals had, and wanted me to make sure that I voiced that to the rest of the board, is that, I've had to change my recipe per se of reloading to make it, number one, safe, and number two, safe for my firearm and me as in public around me and that sort of thing. And so I just feel like we can't overlook that. And certainly it is a concern. And I think that this option that they have here of limiting length to 4 inches would take care of that and still do away with the potential of using those higher caliber rifles that really have no business being in any kind of hunting situation whatsoever. So.
Well, I appreciate that, and actually, we're actually merging this overall case length, cartridge length rather, to also precluding the 2 largest of the potential calibers that they're talking about. And in the background information that I was provided and all of us were provided, there were only 4 cartridges that had a SAMI overall cartridge length. Well, there was only actually 2 of them that exceeded 4 inches, and that was the 416 Barrett and the 50 BMG, but it still allowed the 470 Nitro Express. I don't know anybody who elk hunts with a 470 Nitro Express, but the 470 Nitro Express is a long-standing sportsman's caliber used extensively in Africa, and I know that it's used in Alaska with grizzly bears, but it is not one that I would use. But what I'm seeing here and where I'm going with this is that this cutoff line of putting it at 4 inches would take those 2 particular calibers out of the mix, the 416 and the 50 BMG. And I also agree with you. I'm not here to preclude anyone's Second Amendment right. I support that. Howsoever, the Second Amendment right doesn't say that you have a right to bear arms and use any caliber you want for hunting.
That's right.
So I don't think we're stepping on anyone's Second Amendment rights by making that recommendation. So with that, I think on the item of cartridges, I'd be willing to take a motion of recommendation to the commission, and I think you've stated it almost perfectly, Mr. Beamer. If you could take a stab at what we would like to do, I'd appreciate that.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So my motion would be to accept the option that's been proposed in the regulation change to change the 3.8-inch overall load length limit to 4 inches. That would allow for hand loaders that want to use that, but still exclude the higher calibers like the 50 BMJ and the 416 Barrett, which are classed as too large for utilizing for big game or any kind of game animal. That would be my motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion with the board? Seeing none, I'd like to open it to public comment on that particular portion of this regulation, and this is to set the overall cartridge limit. We will recommend setting it to no larger than 4 inches. It would exclude 2 particular cartridges from hunting as they stand today. That is the 50 caliber BMG and the 416 Barrett. So any public comment on this particular action?
Is it legal to hunt with 50 BMG?
Sir, you have to come up to the podium.
Sorry. Can you answer that?
Is it 50 to hunt? Is it legal to hunt with a 50 BMG?
And you're asking currently?
Yes.
Is it legal?
It is legal?
Hang on one second. Mr. Kramer, Could you come up and answer that question for me, please? We have a wildlife enforcement agent with us. Could you identify yourself?
For the record, Jake Kramer, Game Warden, Nevada Department of Wildlife. In answer to your question, there are currently no restrictions on caliber use for hunting big game in Nevada.
Then
And I think,
it should
Mr.
be
Kramer,
illegal to shoot it.
there's actually a restriction on the lower end.
On the lower end, there is.
Right, but no restriction on the
Not on the upper
end.
ends.
Right, right. So does that answer your question, sir? And
Well, then, like I say, if it's legal to hunt with it, although very few people do, then it should be illegal to shoot it.
it is currently, what this is proposing to do is make those two particular calibers not legal, or though, if it's greater than overall case length of, cartridge length of 4 inches. And sir, just for our secretary, could you identify yourself, please?
Milton Angel,
Thank you very much.
should I write my name on this?
If you could, please, sir.
There are game bullets that will work in both those cartridges, bullets made for shooting game. And I can't, like I say, I don't imagine too many people shoot them, period. I know one person has 50 BMG. I don't know anybody that has 416 Barrett. But there are bullets that you can use in those to shoot game. If it's legal to use them for game, then it should be legal to shoot them there.
The point is, sir, at this particular time, it is legal to use them. This would make it so that if there was a cartridge or an overall length, loaded length, greater than 4 inches, then it would be illegal. So
Because,
I think this is because I think the thing and the thinking is that those calibers are quite large, and they do quite a bit of damage, and that it doesn't appear that it's part of what hunters want to use. I think that's what this is coming from.
what are we going to damage?
A lot of the meat.
Huh?
A lot of the meat of the animal,
Okay.
right?
Well, is that what we're looking to prevent damage to? That's what I don't understand.
And my understanding is that's why this regulation is up here.
What's this going to apply to?
Hunting big game in the state of Nevada.
The whole state?
Yes.
Is there a regulation to prevent meat damage?
Well, the only regulation that I'm aware of is wanton waste of game. And I don't believe that shooting it with any caliber, that particular damage would fall under wanton waste of game. But not being a law enforcement specialist, I couldn't answer that question. But I think that what this is proposing is just an overall length of the bullet and the casing, and a restriction on over 4 inches. And I understand, and I think what you're saying is that you do not support a restriction on that.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I don't know, because they came out with some new bullets, I think it was Federal, that would open a little faster, so that you'd anchor your animal. But Winchester, 30-06 loading, 150 grain bullet. Okay, and I worked with somebody years ago, and that's what he used. He used the factory load because it worked well in his rifle, but he said that he got a little more meat damage than usual Another friend of mine, he reloads at that time, okay. Didn't have time to reload, so then he bought the same loading. Got the deer, but it damaged me. So I thought to myself, take that bullet, just load the hell out of it. And when you hit that coyote, you don't care about the skin. He's not going anyplace. So there are already things like that that would do that. And it doesn't make any sense. There aren't going to be that many people that would use something that would damage the meat because they want it. And so I don't feel that you're preventing some huge problem. I just don't. Yes. You on game check?
Sorry?
I see you're on a game check post. Do you see a lot of meat damage over time?
Over time, yeah, I do.
Okay.
What sort of
You want me to bring it back
percentage?
here? Yeah, Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Unless you have something else to add, we have a
What was the
3-minute.
thing about, this is just about cartridge?
This is just on overall cartridge length.
Cartridge length.
Right. We do have a 3-minute limit on public
I'm
comments,
sorry.
so that's okay. I
Okay.
appreciate you coming.
I'll just say it real fast. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of regulation pages. It's just a waste.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the other things we need to consider when you're using super high-powered cartridges that hold enough powder like the 50 caliber and the 416, you got collateral damage to consider. If you're shooting and there's a herd of animals and you've picked out yours, and you've got a bullet that's capable of traveling excessive distances, and if it goes through the deer or the elk or whatever animal you've decided to hunt, and you've got some other animals standing beside it, behind it, the possibility of not only taking down your animal that you're after, but another animal that you didn't intend to harm.
I appreciate that, and I'll address that when we bring it back to the board. Is there any other public comment?
Comment on something like that?
Okay, sir, you've already given comment, so if you could limit it.
I know an instance where somebody shot a deer with an M1 carbine, very modestly powered cartridge. When he got up to the spot where the deer was, 2 deer, the bullet went through an ordinary, he said like 300 and something yards. So, but he didn't know the other deer was there until he got to the spot. So most times, people that are careful, they won't have that problem. They're shooting for 1 deer and that's what they'll get. But anything could do that.
Great, thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board before we take an action on this and have a discussion. What this last gentleman just said, Mr. Yannick, I have to agree with him that it's the hunter's responsibility not to shoot when there is a potential for collateral damage. As a hunter safety instructor, I just taught this yesterday on shoot, don't shoot. It's your responsibility not to shoot when you can do collateral damage to some other animal. And if you do collateral damage to some other animal, it's my understanding that the gentleman in the back of the room will have a discussion with him, the law enforcement agent, that it's illegal to shoot 2 animals at one time. So before we call for a vote on this, I'm going to give my 2 cents on this, and that is, currently we do not have a regulation prohibiting upward ends of calibers. I think it's the responsibility of an ethical hunter to choose the right caliber, the right bullet to do the right thing, which, when you pull the trigger, is to have a very safe, clean, ethical kill. And so I think it's an individual thing, and I think we are regulating something that maybe we don't really need to regulate, is just my opinion on it. I'm certainly willing to hear the rest of, I think I already know the rest of the opinions on the board, but that's my opinion. So before we have a call for a vote on that, is there any other comments on this particular item?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'll couple your comment about wanton waste. A high caliber rifle like that, you may only get 50%, if that, of usable game meat. I think that takes away the purpose of why good sportsmen hunt, and I disagree. I do think that there is a need for a regulation when it comes to that. Other states have had this issue as well. The state of Montana is one of them, and here they have a game in the state of Montana that are larger size than any game animal that we have, and they regulated it as well for that purpose. So I guess that's my concern, is that we have the ability to use that now. A regulation would prevent what we go out and actually hunt big game animals for, and that's for consumption, right? So I do agree with the proposed regulation, and I would support that wholeheartedly.
Other comment? Mr. Zuber?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Looking at this, my comment is if the department can put a regulation on preventing the use of lower calibers, which they have, they certainly have, the management authority to put an upper limit also. And as I look through this, there's a wide variety of calibers that is left for the hunter to use in order to hunt in the state of Nevada. And these calibers, they're not going to be precluding somebody from hunting. Yeah, they may not be able to hunt with their technical ability that they want to take a game animal at a certain distance or something like that, but yet they still will be able to hunt, is my agreement on that. And so I wholeheartedly support this regulation, or the motion that's being presented before us.
Okay, I appreciate that. Mr. Yannick, anything further?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think that the reason that NDOW brought this regulation forward is probably, well known by everybody here and those who read gun and hunting magazines and see what capabilities people are doing or trying to achieve. Whether or not those are related to hunting or more of ballistic challenges, and bench rest rifle shooters and people who just want to do it because it's a challenge to them. I think that we're concerned not so much with the bench rest rifle shooter as we are with the average Joe hunter who hunts recreationally and does it for sport and for being able to bring home valuable meat for his family. And I think that, as I've heard the rest of the members of the advisory board bring up, that we're here because we believe in fair chase. We believe that what's the right thing to do, and I'm in favor of supporting the regulation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. No more comment. I would like to call for the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those, Thank you. All those opposed? I'm opposed. Opposed. Thank you. And I'm opposed not from the fact that, just to make a comment, I'm not opposed from the fact that I personally think that those calibers should not be used for hunting, but I just think we're regulating too much. That's all. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Beamer, there were two other items associated with AD, and they were electronic rifle triggers and smokeless powder restrictions. Do you have anything to say on those items?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I did receive 7 different calls and 2 emails from sportsmen with regard to the powder restriction in favor of, and they just happen to be from muzzle loaders, in favor of adopting this proposed change, just so that they could use that Blackhorn 209 powder in their black powder firearms. A lot of these folks, or guys and gals, are inline muzzleloader hunt. They utilize the inline muzzleloaders, which can accommodate that powder, and so I would be in favor of that. Did you want to?
Yeah, if you could put that in the form of a motion.
Is this the same agenda item?
I'm sorry, what?
Is this the same agenda item?
Yeah, this is the same agenda item. This is item 8E. 8E, Tamar, just for refreshment, has 3 particular elements in it. Smokeless powder and muzzle loaders, electronic triggers, as well as overall cartridge length.
And you'll be voting separately on each?
Right, we're dealing with each one separately because each one has its own issues. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, my motion would be to accept the proposed regulation change governing smokeless gunpowders.
And if I can ask you to amend that we support the addition of that. We don't adopt them, we support them.
So amended.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Is there further discussion among the board or any discussion among the board? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up for public comment. If there's any public comment regarding the use of certain powders, including Blackhorn 209 in muzzle loaders, is there any public comment on that particular item?
Don't have.
Yes, sir. State your name, please.
Milton Angel. Is this aimed at the straight line muzzle loaders, the ones that use, an insert in the back end to contain the pressure better and so forth?
Its purpose would be for those muzzle loaders that are capable of handling them. And Blackhorn, if you haven't looked online, you might look up Blackhorn 209. It has been developed for that particular type. Yes.
Of course, I have a handicap, no terminal for online.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
So I don't know, do they feel like there's a problem with those?
No, this isn't a problem. This is because the commission is saying that there was excluded the it's called Blackhorn 209 in the usable powders. So this is to allow that particular powder to be used.
Oh,
Right.
at this time, it's not allowed?
No.
It's considered.
No?
So do you support this?
I would support that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes. You can use it in other things, can't you? Although probably nobody does.
That's not the item
I know,
discussion.
I know.
Thank you, sir.
I just wondered.
I appreciate that. Any other public comment on that particular item? Seeing none, I'd like to bring it back to the board. And I'd like to call for an action on it. All those in favor of this particular motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Beamer, there's one more
Yeah.
element to this particular regulation.
So for if I may, for the third component of this agenda item, that is to utilize to eliminate the option to be able to utilize electronic or computer-controlled triggers, or what we refer to as smart rifles for hunting. I received both opposed and in favor of this. I will say that the majority of the people that are in favor of this are actual sportsmen. I will say that the people that were opposed to this were more Second Amendment proponents, and I'm sorry, in favor of this were, my bad, they were in favor of this were more Second Amendment proponents. And so I will say that my opinion on this is that these types of firearms have no place in hunting, in my opinion. I think it completely takes the element of fair chase out of our sport, and I am absolutely opposed to this.
Thank you very much. Other members, do you have comments on this particular item?
Mr. Chairman, I think that, when we talked about the North American model, which our Department of Wildlife constantly refers to, and part of that really belongs with fair chase. And I have to agree with Member Beamer about that. And for those reasons, it's like what I said at the commission meeting when this first came up in Las Vegas. I said, it reminds us of that movie, The Day of the Jackal, when that guy had that electronically sighted and trigger rifle sitting in the back of his vehicle, rolled down the window, and he was a quarter of a mile away, and it was directed at the president of France. So I guess it's, if you're on a battlefield, it's one thing, but if you're hunting and you're a true sportsman, it has no place. So I'd be voting to support the banning of electronic triggers. Thank you.
Would you like to make that a motion that we support?
That we support.
So
I would like to make a motion.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Yes, I would like to make a motion to support doing away with prohibiting the use of electronic triggers.
As well as the other portions that were in this electronic section, which included electronic laser
Smart
lock
rifles.
scopes?
Yeah.
Yes.
All the items mentioned in the department's suggestion.
Tamar, do you have that? Okay, all right. Is there a second on that?
Seconded.
Any more discussion among the board? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up to public comment. And this is just on the item that would make it illegal to hunt big game animals with any firearm equipped with an electronic or computer-controlled trigger, and also make it illegal to use items such as smart rifles using things such as laser lock targeting in the scope, which they state here, the company producing these rifles will guarantee accuracy within 1/2 an inch at over a mile a distance at a target moving up to 30 miles an hour once the target is acquired. So any public comment on that particular item?
Milton Angel is an electronic trigger, the Remington E-tronic system.
That I don't have an answer to. Mr. Beamer, do you know?
Repeat the question.
Is an electronic trigger, the Remington E-tronic system,
I do not know that.
but you know what I'm talking about.
I do not.
Okay. They had a setup, they don't make them anymore, but it's electrically fired primer, and it will only fire electrically. If you put that in a regular firing pin rifle, it will not fire. It will only fire electronically. And so, and you have to have that set up to fire that with those primers. And those primers, I don't know if they even make them anymore, but they're hellaciously expensive.
Yeah, Mr. Angel, I don't think that this is included in that because this is saying that it would make it illegal to use an electronic or computer-controlled.
But it has to be.
No, wait,
Okay.
let me finish. Electronic or computer-controlled trigger.
Okay,
You're talking about an electronic primer,
right.
so that is not a
Okay.
trigger.
All right, but the trigger just causes a surge of electricity into the primer.
Well,
It doesn't, it's
would-
like a micro switch.
It would not allow that then.
Huh?
It would not allow that if the trigger is electronic. So.
Why
and
not?
Why not? Because that's what it says here. It would make it illegal to use electronic or computer-controlled triggers.
Well, I would oppose the electronic part because it serves no purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
and, but if it were, I'm trying to think what the other thing is. That's the problem with getting old. But the other stuff, well, I've seen it. I've worked them. They're fascinating. Well, of course, there are a certain number of hunters that come to Nevada who can afford $20,000 for such a thing, but you're not going to see many. Not many at all. So
Great. Thank you, sir.
I'll sit down and gather my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment on this particular item? Seeing none, move it back to the board for, I'd like to call for a vote on the item. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Beamer, we have now dealt with item 8E.
Okay.
You have asked also to pull item 8F, which is to recommend the adoption. The commission is recommending an adoption of a commission general regulation putting prohibitions on unmanned aerial vehicles for the purposes of scouting and hunting. Mr. Beamer.
So I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I did receive 19 emails and 7 phone calls. In regard to this proposal, mainly from a population of people that like to fly these out in public to look for like pine nuts and during October timeframe, find out where the best locations are to do that. I received some from shed hunters as well, that they utilize those. And I guess the big thing was that they wanted to make sure that the proposed change will prohibit the use of aircraft for hunting, scouting, or locating big game year-round. I did check with Tyler Turnipseed on that, our chief of law enforcement. Their thought was that there was already a provision in place to where we don't even have to. My whole thought was, why do we even have to pass this regulation? There's already a provision in place. He agreed with that, but the fact is that they're trying to add in the unmanned or unmarked aerial vehicle. So I would propose a motion that we accept and that we support this regulation as written. It is during a specific time frame, and it does, for those individuals that want to use them for going out pine nut hunting in October, it could be argued the fact that they're not using it for hunting, right, or scouting of big game animals. And I did explain that to them. So my suggestion would be that, or my motion would be that we support in favor of this regulation as written.
Clarification, just a second. You said only during hunting season? Or this regulation will say year-round?
There's actually two, right? Is that correct?
Well, agenda item in your packet, CGR 459, item number 20, is the use of drones and other aircraft for purposes
Yeah,
of hunting,
48 hours
scouting,
prior.
and locating big game. So that's what the regulation, particular regulation that we're dealing with, 459,
Yeah, it's not
is
written.
that. And it says the proposed change requested by the Wildlife Commission is to simplify and expand the season closure for aerial scouting. The regulation currently prohibits the use of aircraft for hunting, scouting, or locating from a period beginning 48 hours prior to the opening of any big game season until the close of all big game seasons in that unit. This has proven confusing to some who thought they could fly up to 48 hours before their season started.
Right.
So that's part of it.
So
And then the other part of it is including an aircraft, including without limitation any device used for navigation, flight, or used in the air, specifically adding unmanned aerial vehicle language to that.
Yeah,
This is-
the first would prohibit,
There's the background information that I just read.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, but what we typed up,
That's right from their agenda.
okay, so it says year-round rather than the current prohibition.
I don't think that it does say that, Gil.
Well, ours does. The first would prohibit the use of aerial devices on hunting year-round rather than the current prohibition of 48 hours prior to any open season and during any open season.
Hang on a second, let me look at what's listed there.
I have it right here. The actual proposed regulation, Mr. Chair, is in the supporting materials.
It is, yeah, exactly,
It says it right here on support.
In the support material on page 17, it does remove during the period beginning 48 hours before a big game hunting season opens until the close of the season in that management unit. And instead, it adds the language that it just now says, that no person shall, a person shall not, for the purpose of hunting, locating, or observing, or assisting a person in locating or observing any big game animal in any management unit. So it does make it year-round, but it's only a restriction on the use of those items for hunting, locating, observing, or assisting a person in locating or observing any big game mammal in a management unit. So it does not preclude looking for pine nuts. It doesn't preclude recreational use, farmer use, whatever use of drones or aircraft. So it is correct. Gil is correct. This would make it a year-round prohibition.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that the year-round excluding for hunting is what I was getting at, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let me just give some background on this. I talked to Tyler Turnipseed about this as well. And the reason why they wanted to go to taking that 48-hour out is because it was confusing. Law enforcement officers had issues in the field where, people are saying, wait a minute, there's no clarity here with regard to my season, right? What I have a tag for. So they thought it would be best, and Chairman Drew, I think, coupled this, if I remember right, where he they thought it would be best to put the language of the regulation to where it just precludes it for hunting purposes of big game animals or scouting. So,
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I understand why, I agree why, but I think we're going to create some conflicts here that may make it a little bit difficult for our wardens to enforce, because we're saying with regards to hunting, correct? Because the member of the public that contacted you and says, well, I want to go look for sheds, or I want to go look for pine nuts, and does that preclude that person from doing it year-round, or only during the hunting season? I mean,
Not even during that time, but.
No,
I see, but I'm saying, we're saying you can't do it.
well, I think it's really clear, and I'll ask Mr. Kramer to please come to the podium if he doesn't mind. This makes it illegal, not just 48 hours before, but it makes it illegal to use an aircraft or an unmanned aircraft or a satellite using real-time imaging to use that for the purpose of hunting, locating, or observing big game animals in a management unit. It does not, and Mr. Kramer, I'll ask you this question, and I understand that it does not preclude any recreational use beyond that. So, Mr. Kramer, if you could identify yourself and please add some clarification to this.
I will certainly try. Jake Kramer, Game Warden, Nevada Department of Wildlife. I do have a prepared statement from our Chief Tyler Turnipseed in regards to this specific issue. I'll read that, and beyond that, if you have specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them as I can.
Thank you, sir.
Adding drones to the aerial hunting and scouting regulation. Most agree that drones are already covered, but the commission wants to specifically add them to the regulation to prevent any confusion about them being prohibited. In doing so, the chairman recommended clearing up the confusion over the, quote, 48-hour period of opening day, or of any, opening of any big game season, end quote, by making it a year-round prohibition. Many of the questions regarding this change have to do with people who fly them for recreational activities or for photography. But the key phrase is that the burden of proof, this is for you, Mr. Yannick, is for the purpose of hunting is our burden of proof. And that is always going to fall back on the Department of Game Wardens to prove. Some have suggested prohibition dates of August 1st to December 31st, rather than a year-round or a 48-hour prior season. So basically, it doesn't prohibit recreational use at all, even though it is a year-round prohibition, but that is only for the purpose of hunting.
Then the challenge, if I may, Mr. Chairman, then the challenge is going to be to law enforcement, because somebody that says, oh, I'm taking pictures. But how do we know these pictures aren't going to be used by himself later for hunting, or somebody else for hunting, or somebody who says, I'm out looking for pine nuts to see when the trees are dropping pine nuts, and it just happens to be in the same area that's he's going to hunt in, he's got a tag for later. I mean, the ethical hunter we're not going to have a problem with. You're not going to have a problem with. But then we put you in a position to have to be judge and jury. Is this guy telling you the truth why he's flying a drone in September?
And again, the burden of proof is always going to fall back on the officer that is building a case against an individual.
And just for clarification, Mr. Kramer, we don't expect you to be judge and jury.
Oh,
we just expect you to be law enforcement, and if you cite them, that's why we have courts and judges and juries. Thank you. I think you clarified that. So it's the department's recommendation, my understanding, the department's recommendation that we make this a year-round prohibition to use aircraft, unmanned aircraft, and satellites using whatever, real-time imaging for the purposes of hunting. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. If I may, I can give a assimilation to it as well. We do see a lot of people in the field. Let's say, for example, elk hunting, bull elk hunting season. You have one hunter with one tag with 10 of his best friends, all with rifles. We understand, we know what is probably going on there. In fact, that it might be a party hunting situation and maybe an unlawful activity produced at the end of that. But, they have the right to carry that weapon in the field. They have the right to shoot coyotes, as they're saying to us in the field, even though we may not think that's what's going on. But as a burden of proof still falls on us to prove that they're involved in an unlawful hunting, big game hunting situation. So I see that as going very similar to this issue as well. Okay. Any
Great,
further
thank you.
questions?
Thank you for the clarification. Any questions, board, for Mr. Kramer? No. Okay. So I think we have a motion that never got seconded because the motion was a little confusing regarding the 48-hour period. I think we've now gotten clarification as to what the department is requesting. So I'll start with Mr. Beamer. Would you like to withdraw your motion as stated originally?
A negative, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that we accept the proposed regulation change as stated, given the clarification that we received from Mr. Kramer. Yeah.
Okay, as stated and as recommended by the department.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Is there a second for that? For the purposes of the motion, I will second the motion, and I will open it to further discussion. Board members.
Well, I have a problem with the year-round. I mean, I see no reason why I shouldn't be able to, like, take an airplane tomorrow and fly over the state of Nevada for the purpose of scouting out areas where I would want to put in a tag for to go hunting, because right now is the tag season that is when I should be applying for my tags. And so I'd be doing that for the purpose of hunting, even if I'm, locating whatever animal I'm going to hunt. I just see no reason why I can't do that. And this might be confusing things because the next one we're going to talk about is game cameras. And they set up a time period when they don't want the game cameras out there. And there's a problem with the 48 hours. I understand that. But and so I would support something from the August 1st to December 31st. Yeah, you can't do it. But to do it year-round, I can't support that.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I too would support. I would support if the rest of the committee or the board would entertain supporting a motion that would allow for us to put a time restriction on there from August to December 31st. I too would support that.
Well, let me ask, would you like to amend your motion?
I was getting there.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll request, I'll ask you, would you like to amend your motion to supporting a period of August 31st to December 31st?
That is correct. I will amend the motion to support the regulation as written with the stipulation that there's a time frame from August 1st to December 31st stipulated on here.
Thank you. And I will again second that. So we now have a motion to support a regulation limiting the use of aircraft, unmanned aircraft, and satellites during a period of August 1st through December 31st for the purpose of hunting. Are we clear? Thank you. Any further comments on the board? Seeing none, I would like to open it up to the public. Public comment on this particular item. The motion is pretty clear. We do support a ban on use of aircraft and unmanned aircraft and satellites from August 1st through December 31st for the purposes of hunting. Any public comment? Please state your name for the record, sir.
John Valley. My question would be the trail cameras that use satellite, this would then take those away?
No, that's not part of this. That's part of the next item.
The ones that use the satellite imagery, so I can get an image to my phone, this would take those out. It says satellite, yes?
Well, it says a satellite or other device that orbits the Earth and is equipped to produce images. So no, the satellite that you're talking about, the connection of those trail cameras are not using the satellite for purposes of producing images.
Okay, so you're looking like a NASA satellite.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's what this says. It says a satellite or any other device that orbits the Earth
Okay.
and is equipped to produce images. Thank you.
In other words, just communication. Not communication isn't part of it. It's the one that you explained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
For the record, Fred Volz. The year-round is very important if there's at all to be a fair chase principle in the North American model. Doing a scan, as Mr. Zuber suggested, months before the hunting season is really not going to give you any information that's useful in terms of where you're going to go hunt months later. Again, it's about fair chase, and this is an unfair advantage to the human hunter. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir. State your name for the record, sir.
Milton Angel. There's the pine nut gatherer out there, and he sees some game. He's not a hunter, but he tells his buddy who is, and he says, hey, you know what I saw the other day? Is he burning his friend by giving him that information that he wouldn't have otherwise in the restricted time? Yeah, another Martha Stewart.
I appreciate your comment. Any other public comment? Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Good evening, Alan Solini for the record. I must be missing something here because the agenda that I'm reading from says to recommend the adoption of Commission General Regulation 459, unmanned aerial vehicles. I don't think Mr. Zuber is going to be is talking about unmanned aerial vehicles. I mean, flying an airplane around, I mean, that's a whole other issue, is it not, than what is before you?
For clarification for you, sir, what they're doing is they're putting that unmanned prohibition into the statute that also includes manned aircraft.
Right. So the item 8F here that is before you this evening is to recommend adoption of the unmanned aerial vehicle drone aspect of that. So I can't understand why Mr. Beamer would change his position on that. It seems very clear that this has to do with unmanned aerial vehicles, what you're looking at tonight. So, I don't see the harm in Mr. Beamer's original motion. So that was, I don't think it would affect Mr. Zuber's flying around in a conventional aircraft. Whenever he does that, that may be covered elsewhere, but what you're looking at this evening is much more limited.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment. And any other
No, thank you.
testimony on that? Thank you very much. And any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. I will clarify for the board that this particular regulation change number 459 is specified, as you see in your board packet, and it includes changes to NAC 503148, which includes making it so that an aircraft, a hot air balloon, an unmanned aerial vehicle, or a satellite capable of doing images would be banned from hunting for purposes of hunting. And we're suggesting that it be from August 31st through December 31st. So there's the clarification for you. Okay, thank you. Any other comment from the board? Seeing none, I would like to call the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Item 8G. This particular item is item number General Commission Regulation 440, trail cameras and other devices. The commission will hold a workshop to consider a regulation relating to amending Chapter 503. The proposed regulation change is intended to restrict the use of motion and heat sensing cameras that are left for a period of time, unspecified, my comment, and not held in the hand. The proposed language would prohibit the use of trail cameras to locate and observe big game animals for the purposes of hunting from August 1st to December 31st. Mr. Beamer, you asked to have that item pulled. Any thoughts on that?
If I may, Mr. Chair, so I received, this is probably where I received the bulk of the emails, 119 emails or phone calls. And so, gosh, I heard both proponents and sportsmen against this. And I got to say that, in listening to everybody and everything that they've sent me, and arguments on both sides of this, I struggle with this because where I look at it in my capacity as the president of Nevada Operation Game Thief, I struggle with the fact that with real-time cameras, especially when you go through and ask other agencies across the country, one of the things that they will tell you is that the device that's used most commonly in poaching cases is these real-time cameras. So they know that a deer or an elk or something's entering a field at night or at a certain watering hole that they may be camped next to, and they'll go out at night, shoot the animal, harvest the animal, and then go the next morning and say, I harvested during legal time, right? So I really struggle with that. I have a real hard time with that. And so I guess, I would be in favor of supporting this. From a personal standpoint, I'd be in favor of supporting this regulation change or amendment. It's it's an actual inclusion, right? We don't have any regulation right now governing any use of trail cams, and so I would be in support of supporting this regulation from August 1st to December 31st, the use of trail cams based on that alone. I am prepared to make that in the form of a motion that we support the commission in this proposed regulation based on what I know about trying to limit the illegal activity and that sort of thing. So
you've made a motion. For clarification, you've made a motion that we support the regulations proposal to ban the use of trail cameras from August 1st to December 31st.
That's correct.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it for discussion.
Thank you. Members, any discussion on that? Use your mic, please.
Mr. Chairman, the language in here talks about motion and heat sensing. What happens if I set my trail cam to take a picture every 20 minutes of the day?
In that particular case, it wouldn't be motion or it wouldn't be heat, would it? It would be timer.
Yes.
Correct. I understand.
That would be legal then.
That's not what's being proposed, though. Correct.
I just want clarification to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. I bet you Mr. Kramer hadn't thought about that.
Well,
but-
yeah,
but-
Mr. Chair, if I may, I mean, Mr. Kramer, do you have any thoughts on that, or, I mean, is the department, have they considered that at all?
Jake Kramer, Game Warden. As far as the department's stance on it, well, one, I can't give you my personal opinion here as a representative of the Department of Wildlife, but I haven't been briefed by the department as far as their stance on that particular issue. I don't know if they've thought about the timing issues of the cameras. I don't know. But the way that it's worded in the draft obviously wouldn't cover that. And for us to randomly go look at a camera set in a field would be a violation of well, it'd be intrusion, yeah, search and seizure problems.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. So, for Mr. Yannick, Mr. Zuber.
Yeah, okay, the way I read it is you can't have them in the field between August 1st and December 31st. I don't know why it would make a difference how it's operated if they can't be there. And then the part on Section 2 where it says you can't place them within 200 feet of a spring, watering hole. If they're not supposed to be out there, what difference does it make where it's placed? I mean, I guess that's another part of it. Plus, it also has nothing to do with what, well, I guess Mr. Valley brought up about what ones that can transmit images. I mean, they're not supposed to be there, which, I don't have any problem with that. Or, if you're going to be out there hunting.
So Mr. Kramer, can I ask you to come back up here real quick? Just for clarify, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Okay, so first of all, I mean, as a law enforcement officer, if we had a situation like that, is it provable and is it enforceable?
Restate the original complaint or question, I suppose.
So if we had somebody that was, say, for recreational purposes, had a trail cam out saying for recreational purposes, we have a trail cam out to take pictures of animals coming into an area that we may be able to go back and photograph or something like that, right? If that's what they're saying, but they have a big game tag and they have a rifle in their truck or a bow or archery equipment, where is it at there? What is that provable and is it enforceable, I guess?
It's a very gray line. A little bit like fishing. If you're in the field with the means of take and with, for example, a tag, so you have the means and the ability to take, you could look at that as hunting in that case. So I think any court, district attorney would probably be able to back that one up okay.
Okay.
But then again, you're getting into some gray area there where some case law that maybe not be in our favor coming down the road.
Okay. Appreciate that, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, any more discussion before I open it to the public? Go ahead, Mr. Yan.
No, I think that it may be our position to want to add some language to what the department is proposing to include the issue that I brought up, that timed, cameras operating on a timer principle would be excluded also. because all this it says nothing about the ability to transmit the picture back through to somebody sitting in their home or sitting in their truck or wherever. And I think that's the issue that we're trying to avoid, is people getting a view of what the game is currently doing and when it's doing it.
Mr. Yannick, I appreciate your concern on that, and I know this is probably out of the purview of our support from our district attorney, but in a previous capacity, I was in enforcement, and when I read, and if you can help me out with this, I'd appreciate it. When I read a statute, and this particular one, and let me read it to you, it says that during the period beginning August 1st and ending December 31st of each year, with the use of a trail camera, including, without limitation, any device that is held or manually operated by a person and that is used to capture images or video using a heat or motion detector to trigger the device. It was my understanding, explained to me by the Attorney General's office several times, that the term including does not preclude other things.
That's my understanding as well.
Including does not preclude the use of something that is on a timer. So can you help me out with that, Ms.?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, thank you for this opportunity to provide some clarification to the board members. I think your explanation is absolutely on point. That's correct. I mean, the use of the term including without limitation means that, any of the items described in this subsection of this NAC provision is not exhaustive. Meaning that it is open-ended, it's not a complete or exhaustive list. It can bring in other devices, including, for example, the one, Mr. Yannick, that you had described earlier, which would be a time device. And also, because I have this opportunity to speak to the board members, I also want to address another question that Mr. Zuber had posed earlier, and I don't know if that was, answered by anyone. I think you had mentioned that with respect to subsection 2, that NAC provision, I think you were just making some remarks as to, why would it have, any bearing, or is it essentially nonsensical to have that subsection prohibiting the placement of certain devices within 200 feet of a spring, a water hole, or an artificial basin when in subsection 1, during those particular time frames that's set forth in that provision, it's already prohibited carte blanche anyway. And to answer that question, subsection 2 is separate and distinct from subsection 1. So subsection 1 has its own parameters and limitations and restrictions. So for example, going back to subsection 1, it's the use of a trail camera, including without limitation any device that is not held or manually operated, so on and so forth. Subsection 2 being a separate prohibition, which means regardless of the timing or what month of the year it may be, a person is prohibited from placing any sort of device that's described in subsection 1 at any of those 3 locations set forth in subsection 2. So hopefully that adds another layer of clarification to the board.
Yes. So if I may, Mr. Chair, just for further clarification there, I did talk to Chief Turnipseed about this as well, just to get some clarification on that. The issue is that there were a lot of people that, like, for example, Bighorns Unlimited, came forward and said, listen, we use trail cams to determine what kind of usage we have. This would preclude us from doing that, right? Well, it says here for the purposes of, right? So there's one thing. The second thing is to not get into the habit of harassing game at water holes, to prevent them from maybe using a water hole or a basin of that nature, that they felt that just 200 feet away from, they could still determine whether or not there's usage going on there, right? And that sort of thing, and it kind of covers all bases there. So that was his explanation. So.
Yeah, thank you for Mr. Beamer. Mr. Zuber, did our legal support help you with your question? Yeah. And thank you for that, sir. I appreciate that. We do have a motion that we support this regulation. We've had a lot of questions, whether they cover timers, whether they cover things at springs and watering holes. If there's no more discussion here, I would like to open it up for public comment.
Just
Yes, yes,
one other discussion, if I may, Mr. Chair. You know, I received out of all those people that called me, a great number of them were archers. And, you know, and I'm an archer, and I will say that that a lot of those folks, especially these backcountry archers, will go way back into wilderness area, set trail cams, just so they know that they're not wasting their time going into an area. I understand that argument, but the fact is I think that we still. I think that allowing it does more harm than good. I think we have to look at the big picture there. It's my opinion, and the fact that what becomes of it. You know what I mean? What comes out of being able to use devices like this? And in Boone and Crockett, their position on it is real clear, that that is not considered fair chase. And so, I'm all about fair chase when it's appropriate, and I'm all about us looking at the big picture there, I guess, and seeing what is some of the damage that comes out of using trail cams, and does it outweigh the good? Does that make sense?
Great, thank you. If no more comments here, I would like to open it up for the public. Thank you. Any public comment on this particular item?
For the record, Fred Volz. Fair chase is not a situational concept to be applying. And given the Commission's penchant for hunter success, opportunity, and convenience at every opportunity, having this restriction from August 1st to December 31st is really not appropriate, does not serve the public interest, and certainly doesn't help wildlife. If the hunters are indeed as skilled as they'd like to believe they are, they should have to use those skills and not rely on crutches such as cameras, motion detectors, timers, what have you. They should be using their own skill. End of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public discussion, public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'd like to bring it back to on the board. Any further discussion? I'd like to call for the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. Moving on, item number, that is item number 8. Great. Moving on, item number 9. This is other items on the agenda. Other than those items listed above, the remaining items on the attached agenda of March 24 and 25 typically require no action of this board. Occasionally, one or more advisory board member may desire to discuss these items, and such discussion may result in an action. Gentlemen, is there a desire to discuss any of the other items on the agenda, the Wildlife Commission agenda?
Unless the chairman has a migratory issue.
No, we've already adopted that under item 8. Thank you. Seeing none, I'd like to move on to item number 10, review, discussion, possible action to adopt the 2017 County Advisory Board budget. Member Yannick, you have prepared a draft for us, as you have in years past. Would you care to go through this and present a motion perhaps after your presentation? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been working with the department staff to, number one, put together the requirements for the various county advisory boards, instructions on how to complete the budget process, and this year's spreadsheet based upon the locations and dates of the meetings to be held in state fiscal year 16-17. This is My phone wasn't ringing off the hook. I didn't get a whole lot of emails from county advisory board members, so I guess the program's getting to the point that we hope to achieve when this started about 8 or 9, 10 years ago, when it used to be made on the back of a brown paper bag and submitted, haphazardly, and we tried to standardize it by following what we did here in Carson City. For tonight's meeting, I've prepared for the staff, for the members, and a copy for staff of what I put together based on the schedule of meetings and locations of the meetings, given the GSA schedule for maximum lodging cost, incidental cost, mileage per mile cost, limitations on rental car or suggested maximums for rental car rates, and what the current round-trip air travel is from Reno to Las Vegas. It's pretty straightforward now that the spreadsheet that we distribute to all the counties, all they have to do is indicate the number of people traveling, the method of travel, whether or not they'll be going by car or by plane, the round-trip mileage to and from the various sites, and the rest. The program generally does a good job for them of calculating what it's going to cost to send somebody from each of the advisory boards to the various meetings. It's a matter of just simply taking the information off the basic spreadsheet and then putting in the budget, putting them in the totals onto the budget request sheet, and then submitting it to the department. Then the department puts together basically the 17 different county reports. At the same time, we have sent requests to the treasurers of the 17 counties, asking them to tell us what is left in the treasuries after paying, reimbursing the various members for their travel requests throughout the year, 2015, 2016. And we come up with, or let's say the commission comes up with a way of allocating how much needs to be augmented for each of the departments. Each individual county advisory boards. So for Carson City, the total request, considering where the meeting's held and the standard method of travel that's appropriate for where we are, would be $3,736. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I've been afforded two sheets. One of them is a attachment A, and then behind it is a state fiscal year 2017 Carson City Advisory Board worksheet. The worksheet has a total requested budget for the Carson City Wildlife Advisory Board of $3,540, as I can see, and attachment A has $3,736.
Yeah, there's a couple of items that we've put in there that's not listed on the secondary spreadsheet. We have a thing that occasionally we have members of the board who want to put in expenses for printing out stuff, postage, telephone, and the workman's comp issue. They're de minimis amounts, but it does raise the difference from what our chairman indicated from the basic spreadsheet of $3,540 to $3,736.
I see here there's an line item on the attachment A of incidental expenses of $80, postage $49, telephone $25, workers' compensation $72, and office supplies of $50. So I see those not on the other, and those make up the difference.
Those make up the difference,
Great.
and they're de minimis amounts, and the fact that what the department, the department does, basically, these are estimates. These rates will change periodically during state fiscal year 16 and 17. GSA adjusts the rates, the IRS adjusts the mileage rate. So these are approximations when we get down to it. And if any county finds itself in a situation where it's going to run out of funds, we can augment that. The department can submit to LCB a request for augmentation, and then we can get that money to the counties ahead of time. Our biggest problem in this whole process is getting the correct information from the various county treasurers, honestly, because some of the counties are a little lax on submitting their expenses, so when they report back to the department what they have as a balance, somebody says, oh, but I haven't submitted the expense report for the last trip, because they just didn't. We have some cabs that don't.
I appreciate the rest of the cab and the state background, but I think we're specific to our budget right now.
Right,
So I've taken a look at it. I have no issues with it. Gentlemen, it's a total budget of $3,736. I think it's very reasonable. I will entertain a motion to approve this budget.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. Before I call the motion, any public comment on our budget? State your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Bobby McCollum. And just a question, is that worksheet and budget sheet that you were just reading off of, is that available to the public? And how would I obtain a copy?
Yes, it is available to the public, and I will give you my copy right now.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, legal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to provide some additional benefit to the public, if you want to obtain any additional copies of the supporting material that's been referenced at today's meeting or at any other meeting, you can go to the contact information that's listed on the second page or actually the last page of the agenda. That's Miss Kathy King. It provides her contact information. You can get a hold of her that way, and she'd be happy to provide you with the supporting material.
Thank you for the clarification. No further public comment. I would like to bring the motion back for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next particular item is informational. I will be attending the meeting on March 24 and 25 in Yerington. And I've heard from Member Beamer that he will also be there, and he will be discussing other items, including Operation Game Thief. Is that correct?
That's affirmative.
Thank you very much. And it will not cost additional money out of our budget, as you're going anyway, correct?
That's correct. So for the record, I want to make sure that the committee knows that, or the board knows that I'll be going in my own capacity as far as expense goes. So I won't be submitting any expenditures to the board.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 12. It's an informational item. Let you know our next meeting will be prior to the commission meeting on May 13th and 14th. Our meeting then is May 9th. Please mark your calendars accordingly. Item number 13.
Mr.
Members?
Chair?
Yes.
We could not get the Sierra Room for that, so stay tuned on location.
Okay, location will change, and please let us all know. Thank you very much. Item number 13, members, any future agenda items to discuss, to bring forward? Seeing none, I would like to move to item number 14, public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any matter that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Advisory Board to manage wildlife, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item. Public comment? Yes, sir. State your name.
Yes, Fred Volz. I would just like to respond to what the city attorney was saying about the attachments. When the Department of Wildlife has its meeting, it posts all of the items that it's going to be discussing as an attachment to the main agenda. The Board of Supervisors here in Carson City does the same thing, and that would seem to be an acceptable standard to use for this board as well. So the budget specifically really should have been attached to the agenda and located on the city's website, it would seem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I move to item number 15. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I assume there's no comment. All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.